Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Ric Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. The critically acclaimed family drama Storms by Maria Fernandez Snitzer unfolds in the midst of preparations for the arrival of a destructive hurricane developing in the Gulf of Mexico. Characters and events develop through the use of flashbacks, and family secrets come to light to change the course of the past, present, and future of this ordinary family in the bayou country of Louisiana. New Orleans native Maria Fernandez Snitzer received her B.S. from Loyola University, her master's in education from the University of New Orleans, and her Ph.D. from St. Louis University. She now lives in Covington, Louisiana with her family. In addition to family, she loves fishing, spending time with numerous pets, and is an avid reader. Maria is deeply rooted in the rich Louisiana bayou culture in which she was raised. Maria Fernandez Snitzer, author of Storms, our guest on This Week in America. Dr. Snitzer, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I always look forward to talking about storms, and so thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. This is such a really well-done book on several levels, as we'll talk about, the actual storms that you fear are approaching and the storms that are happening in real life. And it's a fascinating approach. The book, by the way, available wherever books are sold. We'll go through all of that during our conversation. Who is the most important, influential person to you to inspire your writing? I'll ask that because you've done such an excellent job. Critics love the book. Hard to believe this is the first novel that you've written. Who's your inspiration as a writer?
Well, probably the most inspirational was my father. He was the historian of our parish. As you know, Louisiana isn't geographically counties, we're parishes, and he was the historian of our St. Bernard parish. And one of his favorite methods of collecting data was to gather oral histories, and he would go to the homes of local people and just get their stories on different events that happened in the area, and I would go with him. And I listened to the questions, I listened to the answers, and just got totally absorbed in this historical method of his. And so much of my description of the settings in this novel, much of not so much the stories themselves, but mostly the setting, comes from that past. And also, I have to give a shout out to Kate Chopin, my favorite novelist, realist. She was an author who, particularly in The Awakening, but also in all of her many short stories, she had a way of making her settings come to life, to make the setting so alive as though they were characters in the novel. And I've always loved that particular feature in her writing. And she's actually, even in my novel, in Storms, the characters have the name Charleville, which is actually a name in Kate Chopin's real history. So I kind of gave her a little shout out.
Well, it's interesting the influences you had. You've done such an excellent job in building the characters and the backstories of the characters. And obviously, some of that at least comes from listening to your father as he was doing the oral histories and creating the characters, not only the characters, but the scenery, the towns, that comes alive as well. And as in her book, you have done the same in making them actually part of the story, almost a character in the story. It really comes alive. The book we're talking about is Storms. Maria Fernandez Snitzer is the author and our guest. Her website, very simple. Her name, mariafernandezsnitzer.com. And we'll spell all of that as we go through the interview today. There was a lapse in time between the first and second editions of Storms. Why that time lapse?
Well, to all of us in South Louisiana, we know that early fall or end of summer 2005 brought with it Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
And so, you know, our lives totally changed. It was such a disaster. We had family living with us, which was nice, but also a little hectic.
Oh, yes.
And so, I don't know, marketing a novel at that point seemed so secondary. It was not a good time for such things. My children were going through changes. My husband lost a practice. You know, it was just very secondary. And when the original publishers suggested that I travel to promote the book, it was just out of the question. There was no way that I could just drop everything and go promote a book. I had to, you know, it really was, like I said, very secondary in my life. So that was basically it. You know, the book was sort of shelved and sat there and moved on to other things. And I think what happened to me as far as the writing was that when I saw how easily it could be shut down, it really deterred me from moving forward with my writing. So I was really happy. It sort of has a rebirth, and I'm excited about writing again. So that's the good part.
It was interesting as so many people watching Katrina unfold and going from the storm, and every report came in, got hoarse to the point where you're like, I really can't believe I'm seeing this, that it's that bad there. Did you have any idea heading into this it could be the total disaster that it ended up being?
Yes. And I'm saying that as a person who grew up in on the bayou. I mean, yes. You know, if we're below sea level or at sea level, and it was not unusual for us to evacuate once a year, sometimes twice a year. Skip a year every now and then, but it was really a part of lifestyle in where I grew up. And you know, the extent to Katrina's destruction, of course, one can never prepare for that. But did I think it could happen? Yes. It was, you know, the city of New Orleans. People hear about the city of New Orleans because it's a more, you know, bigger population, economically more important. But the small communities outside of Louisiana, where the main economy is fishing, these are the areas that were struck more often than Katrina. And you know, to lose a house in Hurricane Betsy in '65, or to lose a home in Katrina in 2005, you're still losing a home. It's not the extent of the hurricane itself. So in areas where I grew up, yes, we always knew it was possible. I got a little long-winded there, but of course.
Well, no, it's fascinating to get, because as we're watching it in other parts of the country, this unfold, and that's why the book, I think, is so powerful. Storms. We think of what these people, what you put people in these people category. You are one of those that so many impacted by this. What you go through in preparation, not just physically but emotionally, what you go through as you get a word a storm is developing and trying to track it and see where it's going to go. I'm fascinated by the Bayou country and life there, and watch everything I can on that. You grew up there as well, and still fascinated by what happens in the Bayou country. What role does that play in who you are as an author?
Growing up there is who I am. I've lived in other places, but living there, it's the best way I can put it. It's who I am. We grew up so differently than in other areas. I mean, it was very distinct. And of course, other places have the same, you know, a person from another place can say it's very distinct.
Yes.
But um, we grew up in an area where social life was weekends with your extended family and neighbors. We didn't go out to dinner every night. We didn't, my brother was 9 years older than I, and people couldn't believe as we were going through our adulthood how close we were because we were so far apart in age. But they didn't realize that my brother didn't go out bowling and, movies and all of this. We did things with the family, the community. That was it. That was our social life. And as a result, I am extremely close to my cousins. They're my best friends. In other places, I talk to people and they don't even know who all of their cousins are. And family is everything in the Bayou. And I also feel like growing up where you're threatened by disasters every year, I feel like I am so non-materialistic in that sense because you grow up knowing that thing that you spend so much time with can be gone. So don't put too much value in it. You can't take everything with you when you leave.
Yes.
So you know that the house you love, we have a place. Of course, my family home where I grew up, the family home was lost in Katrina. And so I have built, we call it our fishing camp. It's a house we go to every week. And, the time is coming up, like in September, in August, September. And if there's a storm in the Gulf, I leave it. And I say, be tough, be strong. I hope I see you when I come back.
Yes.
It's just the way you can't, you put the value in the people around you rather than the things around you. And I'm grateful for that. I know it sounds terrible, but I am grateful for that. And I love it. So,
well, it sounds like many of us would listen and go, wow, I almost wish I had that connection, or I do wish I had that connection in my life with people rather than identified by a car, by a home, by material, the size of my television set, that type of thing. And you bring all of that rich culture to life in the book Storms. And this is not just about packing the car and where we're going to go for the next couple of days, how are we going to get through this. This is all family-based as well. You do it so well with flashbacks and secrets that come to life. Talk about that style, starting with the flashbacks, a very unique way to tell the story from that perspective.
Well, if you're telling it, when I see movies, okay, you look at a movie or you read a book that is all about the present. A person at one point in their life is not just about who they are at one point in their life. And the people who are influencing that person, they're not about just at one point in their life. They have a history, and we all bring history into the present. And so I feel like the flashbacks bring that richness, that bring that history, and builds onto the presence in the novel. I don't know, making total sense there, but I know I'm not. If somebody writes about me, about my personal life, they have to do flashbacks, because just like I went into that whole description of growing up on the bayou, that's a part of who I am, and that influences my actions today. So I think a flashback, sometimes it's important in explaining how that person got to that place, or how that person got to that decision, why that person is interacting with another person the way that he or she is. So that was, I love, and I particularly love flashbacks in novels. So I guess that's the main reason.
Well, yeah, and you do them well because sometimes we feel like I don't have enough information. They did a flashback, but I'm still not quite sure. Or the other side of that is, did they really need 15 pages to do that flashback? It's overdone. We have enough
Right.
that we know who this person is, what has shaped their lives, and you present it in a manner that's very digestible. We're able to learn and then go on with the story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It is a risk that you take because you don't want to develop an entirely different novel with your flashbacks, and so it is a risk. But sometimes I think they're very necessary, and they do well to enrich the story, the narrative.
Our guest on the program is Maria Fernandez Snitzer. That's Snitzer. The book is Storms. It's available authorreputationpress.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the usual places. Information, and you can order it as well from her website, mariafernandezsnitzer.com, and link onto our website at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. The story of the Steiners, Elise, and just very briefly, this is not, as I say, just packing on the storm. You've got a lot of family secrets there. You mentioned the family connections. You've got a cousin. You've got an aunt. You've got a lot of very strong characters in there and a great story, don't you?
Yes, extended family. As I said, my cousins are my best friends and have always been. It's funny because when I met my husband, we were talking about our friends, and he said, you really don't have any friends. And I said, yes, I do. He said, they're your cousins. I said, they're my best friends. You grow up, you're in school, you're in the same class, you're in the, they're my best friends and always will be. So yeah, it was important for me to depict that. I think it's so typical too on the Bayou. So it was important for me to depict that and to choose my characters to, exhibit those relationships. And I hope I did it well. I hope I did.
And you did. Yes, go ahead.
I also want to say, in writing about the extended family, I don't want anyone to think that it was any autobiographical.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. I wonder which cousin this was she's talking about here. Exactly, yes.
Exactly.
Disclaimer here.
No, I don't want that. But anyway.
Yeah, the book is Storms, and you've got so many personal stories that unfold. As I say, it's more, you think storms, and this is storms in real life, and storms that, family lives, and storms, meteorological storms as well.
Right.
The story is, I don't want to necessarily say complex, but you've got a lot of moving parts there. That's what makes it so fascinating, because it's not just we loaded the car and thought about our cousin and go on from there. Did you have the entire story laid out at the beginning, or did this sort of evolve as you started to tell the story?
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think that you could probably, get different answers from different authors, because as your method of writing, everybody is an individual choice. Yes. Obviously, but for me, it wasn't like an academic paper where you turn in your outline and what's going to be said in written in every chapter. It wasn't like that for me, and a simple question is no. I had no idea where the novel was moving, and that was my entertainment, so to speak. I would literally, I had no idea how it would end, and I just took it day by day. Sometimes I wrote something that would be in a chapter that would be later on. Sometimes I would add it to a chapter that was early on. It totally evolved. In fact, I had no idea that my novel would be written the way it was. And that was the fun part of it.
Well, I was going to say, was that one of the favorite parts of doing this? Like the reader, we don't quite know where you're going. As the author at that time, you really didn't know either quite where you were going. Was that fun? It was entertaining for you as well.
That was my favorite part because, the novel, the narrative was like a person to me. It was growing. It was developing. Sort of think about when, I don't know if you have children, but when I raised my children, I had, they're 2 years old. You have no idea what they're going to be like when they're 20. And you just watch this development. And sometimes things happen that you don't expect. Sometimes things happen that you want to happen. But, you're watching this child grow to adulthood. And that's how my novel was. It sort of took on a life of its own. And it was thoroughly interesting. I enjoyed it myself.
And it's no reason the rest of us do. I guess if the author has enjoyed the process, the reader will enjoy the process as well. Were there times when you thought, I need to stop writing now because I'm not quite sure where to go with the story, or the writer's block? Did that come up at any time?
Well, I sort of think of a writer's block as not having any idea of where to go or whatever. I had too many ideas, so to speak. Some days I would write pages, some days just a few paragraphs, and some days I'd go back and delete what I wrote the day before and start all over with that page. So I don't know that would be called a writer's block, but I feel like I had too many things swimming in my brain at that point.
It's sort of interesting. You'll talk to authors from time to time, and they will go through just the opposite of writer's block. I can't stop thinking about Elise or Jackie, and I want to tell the story, and it's 3:00 in the morning, and I really need to at least get a couple of hours of sleep. Was it difficult sometimes just to shut it down so you had some time for yourself?
It is, because it wasn't just, I had my children were at home. I had a typical life going on, and everybody knows how busy life can be during the day. And so I had to find certain times. And for me, I had to totally dive into that setting. And sometimes that could be difficult when the phone is ringing, the dog is barking, the dog has to go out, the kids feed the kids, but and here I am, I'm living in Bayou Chateau with the Signers. And it sounds kind of weird, but you have to put yourself mentally in another world and then come back to reality and pick up on the meatloaf and getting table set for dinner.
Yes.
I don't know if that's making any sense, but
it makes perfect sense. Yes.
That is a very, it's a difficult thing to do at times. Some days it's easier than others. But it can definitely be, not cause writer's block, but it can definitely be an obstacle to the writing.
Certainly understandable, especially when you have the passion for telling the story that you have. The book is Storms by Maria Fernandez Snitzer. A few minutes left in the program. What do you hope the takeaway is? It's a very entertaining read. We on Storms on a number of levels. What do you hope the thoughts are of the reader when they finish Storms?
Well, I don't know if this is exactly what my thing about Storms is that it's about ordinary people. And it seems that people, especially in recent years, the entertainment is about superstars, super athletes, super entertainers. It's about futuristic societies. It's about all these things that are out of the ordinary. And really, the best stories to me are those about ordinary people. And we all have a novel in us all of our lives have fed us enough information, emotion, that there's a novel, there's a story in all of us, and we don't have to be superstars, supermodels, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And I think that to me is the point of my novel, not the point of the whole novel, but that people should know that these are issues, events that happen in ordinary lives. And that probably is my takeaway with it.
You make, again, as I said earlier, you make everything come alive. We feel like we know these people. The empathy as the characters evolve and the storyline evolves as well. It's Storms by Maria Fernandez Snitzer. What are you working on now? Are you working on another novel?
Well, I have started another novel. For some reason, I am really intrigued by the 40s and 50s. Probably because my parents talked about those times a lot. And like I said, I would go in my trips with my father. I'd hear a lot about those years, and I'm working on a novel right now. It's kind of loosely based on my mother's life and the things that she and her friends went through during those years. And
yes.
So, it's just sort of, I'm working on it. Let's say it's very beginning, but actually the rebirth of Storms has really encouraged me to do it too. So, it's fun. It's fun to get back to it.
Well, and Storms is getting such rave reviews. It really is. People are moved by the stories of the present and the past as you unfold those. As I've just got a couple minutes left here, as someone who lives through this every late summer into fall, is there a reflective period that you go through as they're warning you, the watches are out there, the warnings are out there, here we go again type of thing? Is there a reflective period you go through and in thinking back on life and what you've been through?
Absolutely. As I said earlier, you have to detach. You have to detach because you can lose things. And of course the preparations that I sort of touched upon a lot actually in the novel. People who grew up in this area, we all snap into storm preparation. You go to the store, you gather the food, you get the things out of the freezer because the electricity is going to go off. We all know what to do. It's automatic reaction response, and you have the Weather Channel on 24 hours a day. You're watching the hourly updates, and so you learn this routine as you grow up, and so but reflective, yes. Like I said, you have to detach. You have to keep your family safe because that could be in the end. You might only have yourselves. I mean, my husband left his practice. He's a periodontist. He left his practice on a Friday. Katrina was heading for the Florida Gulf Coast. And on Monday, he didn't have practice anymore. So, yeah, you have to know that your life can change in hours, in a matter of hours.
Do you ever recover emotionally? Katrina's been a number of years, and thinking back on that and what everyone went through, I don't know how you could emotionally recover. Can you?
Oh, yes. You emotionally recover by starting over and better. That's what,
okay.
Looking at it as a time to improve your life, to make the changes you always wanted to make in your life, but maybe were afraid to take certain steps. And I know so many people who improved their lives after Katrina. I know a lot who didn't. I mean, they used it, I don't want to say as a crutch but they couldn't climb out of the depression. But for most people, I think they improved their lives. My husband ended up, I'm using him as an example, he didn't start a new practice. He started doing corporate dentistry and loves it because he never did like the business of having a practice. He just liked the clinical.
Yes.
And now he loves what he's doing. It was a chance for him to change the course of his practice. Now, did he stress about it at first? Of course. But you have to direct the stress. You have to direct the emotions toward improving your lives. And we had, as I mentioned earlier, we have this place on the marsh, actually. And it was hit by a tornado. And I have a caretaker on the property, and he was very upset, oh, what are we going to do? And I said, we're taking one day to feel sorry for ourselves. We're taking one day to cry over this. And tomorrow, we're making it better. And that's how you do it.
Well, we can all learn from that. And the reassessment period that obviously you go through and prioritize and reprioritize, something that
right.
we can all learn from. Well, the time has gone by so quickly. It's been a pleasure, Dr. Snitzer, to have you on the program. The book is Storms.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate it very much.
Well, and we'll stay in touch, and the new book comes out. We'll talk about that as well. I love your sense of history and bringing people to life on your pages, and you've done that so well. And in Storms, the book is available wherever books are sold, authorreputationpress.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual places. And, of course, Maria's website, Maria Fernandez Snitzer, SNITZER.com. And you've got a link on our website, thisweekinamerica.us, that takes you directly to her website. So you can follow information there when the new book is available and out, and get information and order Storms there as well. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. I'm fascinated even more so now by the Bayou culture, and hopefully we can do this again. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been our pleasure. Maria Fernandez Snitzer. Book available at Amazon, the usual places. Link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.